So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, listen. Billy Joe Saunders has called out Canelo Alvarez. Billy Joe Saunders has got a lot of stick recently because, people have think he's been ducking Canelo. He's been making a lot of excuses about not enough time, about the money. And a lot of people have given him a lot of stick. Listen, Billy Joe Saunders probably believes in himself. He probably thinks, I want to have a full camp. I want to have a 12-week camp. I want to, give myself the best possible chance. The problem is Billy Joe Saunders has got to understand Canelo's the cash cow. He dictates everything like Mayweather used to do. You can't have your way against Canelo. If Canelo says you've got 7-8 weeks, you've got 7-8 weeks. That's how, the fact is that when you're the cash cow like Canelo, Mayweather used to do exactly the same thing. Catch you off guard, do things like that. When you're in a position of power like Canelo is, right, you can do that. Callum Smith took the opportunity. It had nothing to do with the time preparation. He would have got beat anyway. And there's a lot of casual fans, and I call them casual fans, I'll tell you why, that think that Billy Joe Saunders is going to fiddle his way to a points win against Canelo. Listen, I like Billy Joe Saunders. He's a good fighter. But how people think that he's going to beat Canelo, I don't see what you see, right? I'll explain why, right? And I've explained why before. Chris Eubank hit Billy Joe Saunders. Andy Lee landed shots on Billy Joe Saunders. David Lemieux is a limited fighter. He's a big puncher that got schooled against Golovkin and got knocked out way before Billy fought him. And Rubio also destroyed David Lemieux. Beat him. He beat David Lemieux, right? Listen, that was a great performance by Billy Joe Saunders, but when on earth did David Lemieux become an elite fighter where he was like Canelo? Like, that's his only good performance against a limited Lemieux, right? I can't... You can't think that he's going to beat Canelo just because he beat David Lemieux. Now, Billy Joe Saunders has got a very good style. Like, he moves around. He's quick of hands. Now, my brother thinks Billy Joe Saunders has a great chance of beating Canelo. I've always disagreed. Billy Joe Saunders hasn't got the punch, right? He isn't a big puncher at all. He can't hurt Canelo. Let's just put it out there. He cannot hurt Canelo, right? And Canelo, all he's going to do is put pressure on him, walk him down, hit him with huge body shots. And Billy Joe Saunders isn't even that tall. So Canelo's going to be able to land more cleanly on the face as well. He's going to be landing vicious body shots, right? As soon as after a couple of rounds, if Billy Joe Saunders even has a little bit of success, by the way, Canelo's going to realize this guy can't hurt me. He's going to start asserting a lot of pressure on Billy Joe Saunders. And for me, Billy Joe Saunders' stamina has always been a problem throughout his career. Through the second half of the fights he does, for me, he's not as good. And against Canelo, when it's a guy that's putting that kind of physical and mental pressure on you, you're going to crack. You're going to crack. It's as simple as that. And I've always said about Canelo, he's a bull, but he's a skill bull. He's he's got very good ring IQ. He sets up shots. He walks you onto shots. And he's a very, very powerful puncher. And Billy Joe Saunders, for me, isn't going to be able to keep Canelo off of him. To think that he's just going to go in there and fiddle his way to 12 rounds, it's not going to happen against Canelo. This isn't David Lemieux. This isn't David Lemieux. And don't bring up Mayweather. Firstly, Canelo wasn't as good as he was now as he is against when he fought Mayweather. And Mayweather's not... Billy Joe Saunders isn't Mayweather. Let's just get that. He's not Mayweather, right? There's no way I can see Billy winning that fight. I'm just being honest. And this is no disrespect to Saunders. I just don't think anybody beats him at 160 or 168. I don't think any of them. I think this guy is unbelievable. I do. I think he's an all-time great. I think he's an all-time great. And I think he beats every single 160 and 168 pounder. I do. That's my honest opinion. I think he beats every single 168 and 168 pounder. I don't think there's anybody, right? Andrade, Charlo, any of those guys that you guys keep saying. Canelo will fight them one by one. But then don't make excuses. Just like Callum Smith had everybody thought that he was size and reach would cause Canelo problems. He goes in and washes him. People start bringing up PEDs. Just this guy is a special fighter. His ring IQ, his boxing ability, his power, his underrated speed. The guy's a very, very good fighter. Very, very good fighter. Canelo, for me, beats any 160 and 160. And this is nothing against Billy Joe Saunders. I just don't think he can beat Canelo. I don't think it's even people think that his style will cause him trouble. It's not going to be able to cause him trouble because I don't think Billy Joe Saunders can go the distance with this guy. This guy's going to hit him hard to the body. He's going to bust him up. He's going to really make it difficult for him. He's going to he's going to suffocate him. He's not going to allow him to breathe like he did with Callum Smith. Callum Smith was more game. I think Callum Smith's got a better chin than Saunders, and he's a lot bigger. He's able to take a lot more punishment. Let's not forget, Billy Joe Saunders isn't a 168. Now, you may say Canelo's not a 168, but Canelo's way more skilled than majority of fighters. He's way more skilled than Saunders. Saunders, all he's going to do all night, right, is move angles and box and try to move around. That's all he's going to do. There's nothing else he can do. He can't back Canelo up. He can't walk forward. Canelo can fight box Saunders. Canelo can move, break, Canelo can walk him down. Canelo can do so many things in this fight. He's a power puncher. He can, he can go down to what's Billy Joe Saunders is just going to do one thing. He's going to look to use his hand speed, move in and out. That's it. He can't do anything else. If that doesn't work and Canelo starts busting, it's not like he can change up tactics and say, I'm going to walk Canelo down. Canelo can walk him down. Canelo can box with him. Canelo can do so many different things. Whereas Billy Joe Saunders has only got one way. He has to walk a tightrope for 12 rounds. And Canelo's too skilled for you to be able to walk a tightrope. And I think, unlike Callum Smith, I think Callum Smith was able to absorb Canelo's power. I don't think Billy Joe Saunders is going to be able to absorb Canelo's power. And one thing I find alarming and shows me the casual nature of boxing fans is the fact when they say Canelo won't land a glove on Billy Joe Saunders. But yet Martin Murray, who was a 40-year-old man, landed a glove on him. Andy Lee landed many gloves on him. Chris Eubank landed many gloves. But one of the best pound-for-pound fighters isn't going to be able to land a glove on Billy Joe Saunders. Or Andrade. Or Charles. Man, these people need to look at the guy's resume and some of the great fighters that he's fought. And you're telling me that Billy Joe Saunders, who's been hit by other fighters that were lesser than Canelo. We're talking Billy Joe Saunders is going to be, just like Callum Smith, is going to be moving up levels to fight Canelo. Where Canelo's just going to be fighting another guy that he's fought before. You won't say Billy Joe Saunders is anywhere near the best that Canelo's been in the ring with. But Canelo's going to be 10 times the best that Billy Joe has been in the ring with. So, again, I don't think, I say it again about Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders, their career hasn't been structured very well. They haven't been in the ring with too many world-class fighters. And when you jump levels like that to fight the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. Who has Billy Joe Saunders really beat? Really? Andy Lee, David Lemieux, these are levels below Canelo. Levels below Canelo. Chris Eubank was a domestic level fight when he fought him. And let's be honest, Canelo and Eubank is like a skyscraper between them in terms of talent and ability. You've just got to be realistic, right? Billy Joe Saunders hasn't fought anybody on the level. If Billy Joe Saunders has been in there with Andrade, Charlo, I would say, you know what? Yeah, he's been in with Andrade. He hasn't even been in with a guy below Canelo. Andrade for me is far better than Lemieux. Andrade for me is far better than David Lemieux. Charlo is far better than Andy Lee. Charlo is far better than David Lemieux. So, Derevyanchenko, who Charlo beat, is far better than Andy Lee and David Lemieux. Derevyanchenko, right? And Charlo beat the brakes of that guy. For me, Billy Joe Saunders needs to fight a Charlo or a... I can understand why he wants to jump in there with Canelo because he may not beat Andrade. He may not beat a Charlo. So he wants to jump in there with Canelo because he's thinking to himself, from a business point of view, it makes more sense because if he fights Andrade, he could lose that fight against Andrade. If he fights Charlo, he could lose that fight against Charlo. Whereas if he fights Canelo, at least he's fighting the best in the world. He gets a huge payday as well. And he's an underdog in that fight against Canelo. So if he's going to lose, he might as well lose to the best where he gets paid a shed load of money. I'm not saying Billy Joe Saunders is going into the fight thinking he's going to lose, but he also knows that Andrade and Charlo are risk. So he's not going to be willing to risk that when he's not going to get paid as much money as he would do fighting Canelo. And there's more on the line. He's fighting the best pound for pound. He's got more to gain. He's got, fighting Andrade and what's the Charlo, he's got nothing to gain, really. What's he got to gain? Nothing. Whereas fighting Canelo, he's got everything to gain, nothing to lose, really, because nobody expects him to win against Canelo. Let's be honest, right? And he's got, if he manages to pull it off, he's just beat the best pound for pound fighter in the world. He's had it off. He becomes a unified, you've unified 3 belts. So I can understand why he wants the Canelo fight. But for me, I think that I think a lot of people were saying that, Billy Joe Saunders doesn't deserve the Canelo fight. I think that's a load of nonsense. He does deserve it. What did Callum Smith do to deserve? He's a champion. I don't view Billy Joe Saunders as a legit 168 champion because I don't think he beat a legit guy to win that belt. He beat Shifat Asufi, who was terrible. Let's be honest. Like, he got gifted. You might as well have given the WBO belt to Billy Joe Saunders than let him fight Shifat Asufi, because that was a joke. To win a belt, at least Callum Smith beat George Groves, who was a top fighter, past his prime a little bit, but Shifat Asufi was terrible, so that was like a joke fight, as far as I'm concerned. But Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders deserves the fight with Canelo. I wouldn't mind seeing that next. I wouldn't mind seeing Golovkin, but he beats Golovkin, he beats Saunders, he beats Charlo. It's his era, as he says right now. He's an exceptional talent, an exceptional fighter. I just think Canelo's too good. I think Canelo stops him. I think, unlike Callum Smith, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders would be able to. I just think Canelo stops Billy Joe Saunders. I think he's too strong. I think he's too good. I think he punches too hard. I think his ring IQ is on another level. I think he's got too many tools in the box. There's too many things he can do. And I just personally see him winning the fight against everybody in the 160 and 168 division. Listen, I wish Saunders the best. I hope Saunders goes and pulls it off. As a British guy, I hope he pulls it off. But you've got to be realistic. And, when you see fans talk rubbish, or, that Canelo's not going to land a glove, it kind of angers me a little bit, because I think here's a guy, a pound for pound guy that's taken on all challenges for all comers. And then you think a guy that's like Billy Joe Saunders, who's probably beat, 2 former world champions in his whole career, is going to be a Hall of Famer and one of the all-time greats, like a guy that's probably beaten about 20 world champions, former world champions. It's just not, I just don't think when you fight at the level that Billy Joe Saunders has fought at, and when you look at Canelo's career and the way it's been structured and the level that he's fought at, that Billy Joe Saunders is going to be able to beat Canelo. I said this yesterday in the prediction video I made for Callum Smith Canelo. It's very unlikely when a guy jumps that many levels that he's able to beat the top guy. It very rarely happens. Very, very rarely happens. You've had a lot of experience, which Billy Joe Saunders at world level hasn't had a lot of experience. He's probably had a little bit more experience than Callum Smith, but again, it's still, he's fought nowhere near the competition. Like I said, he hasn't fought any of the legit guys at 160 or 168 for me. Like Andrade, Charlo, all the top Jacobs. For me, he hasn't fought any of those guys. Any of those guys that I think would be a threat to Saunders. He hasn't. Golovkin, he hasn't fought any of them. So I don't see him beating Canelo just for those reasons. I think Canelo's experience at world level will be too much again. I think also Billy Joe Saunders' lifestyle may catch up with him in that fight, because Canelo, as we know, lives the life, and Billy Joe Saunders hasn't always lived the life. And those 4 or 5% in fights like that, when you're coming up against somebody as skilled as Canelo, make all the difference. So that's my take on it. Billy Joe Saunders calls out Canelo Alvarez. What do you guys make of it? Do you give him a chance? Do you think the fight will happen? What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Let me know what you think. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.